Goblins be gone. Yeah, we both got haircuts. So
Thank God. I know, it was like embarrassing.
we had hoped to get an episode out sooner, but we had to get haircuts so we could live up to our perfect hair.
Right. No, legit, like real life kicked our asses work wise. We both just, yeah. So we're sort of crawling, I think, out of, and you had a bunch of holiday crap with your family. That's one good thing about being the black sheep is like, I don't have to deal with any of that crap, but you have a big family.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And taking your kid back and forth is a lot of time too. So, but we missed you. We missed the Pates especially. Burn, Christmas burn.
Burn, Christmas burn. Bernie Inferno burn, Christmas burn.
He's just humiliated. He's like, Dad, why do you make me do this?
He hates it so much.
I love it so much. I love it so much. We also, another thing is too, we've been trying to get a little focus and figure out what we're doing. But again, when you're like burnt out to the ground, like you can't think about anything. But we have determined that 3 weeks without seeing each other's face is just way too long. So that'll never happen again.
Yeah.
That didn't work for either of us.
Yep, there is that. So I'm ready for some nonsense.
Perfect. The first thing I really wanted to do is thank you, Pates, from the bottom of my heart for your bids on the auction for my friend Caitlin. You guys really showed up. I recognized every single name for those of you that bought stuff through the 32 auctions, and almost every single one of you rounded up when you sent the payment, which went right to Kate and her family. So that was awesome. You know, our cult is small, but it is mighty. And it made me just feel really good to see that, you know, we all really do have each other's backs. And that's kind of the world we have to live in now, I think. Sadly.
Yeah, it is kind of heartbreaking that it's like with the systems we have in place, I feel like every day I see new like GoFundMe's, and it's like anytime anybody has a medical event these days, nobody can afford this. You know?
It's the new version of passing the $20 amongst your friends, right? Like who's going to get evicted? Who's got a medical emergency? Whose dog is at the vet? Like, this just shows me that, yeah, like we all, it's just neat how, because parasocial relationships, it's such a strange phenomenon. But she's just such a kind, caring person. On social media, you know, people meet up and you take selfies and yeah, it's cool. But those are real friendships to me. Like it's legit. So that's a good feeling to be able to help. So you guys really, truly, truly made a difference in this family's life. They're, you know, got their dog, they got their bunnies. Our cult rules. It's the best cult.
Yeah. Yep.
Real. Speaking of the best cult, Sherry again. Sherry's also just we call each other, we're both SJs. Sherry is an SJ, but I know it's kind of confusing to have like two SJ. Anyway, and Sherry also has fluid pronouns. So like she could be a she, they could be like, they literally don't care. So I just always say Sherry because SJ and they is already confusing us. When we send, we like to both thrift and junk and we enjoy each other a lot. And we both have the like same love language of mail. We send each other little trinkets back and forth. And last time sent me potluck with Elvis, right? Before that, I told you she's mailed me things that a Fenton shoe, that a color that I didn't have when I have like, you know, 20, like, you know, like magic. Sherry watches the episode and I get in the mail two things. The first of which is Tillamook Rock Lighthouse. Yes, the cursed lighthouse. We were talking about this adorable little trinket box that she picked up. That was the thing that I, you know, was looking for all weekend, was something with this lighthouse on it. So she finds one and sends it to me. And then she sticks in there, and I'll put a photo in here, this awesome dish towel that says, please no Pyrex in the dishwasher. Well, I started just screaming laughing because I had seen that towel before. And Jen, who's a Pate, can verify this because she took me to the store in Kansas City where the towel came from when we were at Belvoir last summer. I literally picked it up and giggled. And that's the same store, by the way. We cut it out in the episode because of the swears. But I had asked you, hey, did I send you one of my pens yet? Because I got this set of pens and we, it had nothing to do with it, but that's from the same store that this towel came from. So Sherry sends me the towel from, it's like sink bombs away. You know what I mean? And again, like I just was crying, laughing. Like I love this towel and I've seen it before and I had it in my hand and I didn't purchase it. And here it is in my kitchen. I went to a couple awesome markets actually yesterday in Portland.
Yeah, speaking of end stage capitalism, it looked like an abandoned mall or something like that.
Yeah, that's Lloyd Center. That was like the big mall back in the day. Like when I moved here in the 90s, like that was the hip place. That was my old like neighborhood. And they have a skating rink in the mall. And like, it's just so bizarre to see it like just destroyed. And then there's like a few little stores inside that are still operating. But it totally felt like walking into the back rooms yesterday. It was crazy.
Yeah, we had that with a mall in Worcester. It was the Greendale Mall. And that was like the mall when I was a kid, it was the
Yeah.
only thing around. And by the time that place closed, it's long gone now. They tore it down and built something. I think it's like an Amazon warehouse or something. By the end of that, you'd go in there, it was like I think there was a TJ Maxx at one end, there was a food court at the other, and kind of in between was a no man's land.
Yeah. And the food court, I don't know, was it really weird? Like ours has like an Auntie Anne's and a Chicken Connection and like an off-brand burger place, and that's kind of it. Maybe a
Well,
bubble
there's
tea.
that like an independent taco place, which was kind of awesome, and they were really good. So
Okay.
that was one thing that kept us going there was taco place, Tacos Mexico.
People that are younger, like my kid is just fascinated when she well, because I was a hellion, but she's always like, tell me about what it was like in the 90s. Because I just had no self-control whatsoever. But like the mall was so integral to our social lives as young people.
Yeah,
Like we were always there, just like buying little things and loitering and meeting our friends. It was like a social center.
yeah, it was like that movie Mallrats. It was
Yeah,
exactly like that.
that's where I'm going. So we come home last night and Dave's just like, just can't get it out of my head. And he's like, here's what's going to happen is they're going to turn all these empty malls into like retirement centers for us when we're old. And I was like, that's brilliant. Like,
Everybody will have dementia looking for the orange Julius on that floor.
literally, like they'd be like, it's right over there, sir. Oh, like,
Yeah,
but I guess
yeah,
that's what happens when you build your whole culture on consumerism, which is America
right, yeah.
or the West. You know what I mean? In general. And it's like, then
Yeah,
when it
and
fails, look what happens.
I've always kind of felt that way as far as books go, because I feel like there used to be a variety of bookstores, and were a lot more used bookstores. And
Hmm.
then you had things like Barnes and Noble come in, and Borders was another one that was like a big
Walden Books was always in the mall, or B. Dalton.
right. I kind of liked Walden Books,
I did too.
but the other ones kind of like they tried to be a little bit of everything, sell all kinds of media, and have a coffee shop, and just be like a one-stop shop for all
Right.
this stuff. And then along comes Amazon and online retailers, and those places are all gone now. Just wiped them out. Like they
Yeah.
still exist, but not like they did for a while. But it sucks because I think we really need to return to the independent bookstore, and I feel like that's coming back a little bit. Hopefully, I'm hopeful that it is because I'm just I've been thinking a lot lately about how if we had one really good solar flare, it could take out all
Shut
of the
up.
cloud, and I'm like, that's why we need hard media.
I literally went on a 20-minute rant in the car yesterday to Dave.
Yep,
And I was
twinning.
like, we're when we have another Carrington event. What are all these gonna do when there's no satellites? I literally went on this huge rant and at the end was like, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. We'd take care of each other and I was like, the 50s were horse in a lot of ways, but it's like everybody on the block knew each other. Like
Right,
one person on the block owned a ladder and you all could borrow it.
right. there's also the knowledge aspect of it. Like people are
Yeah.
now like, "Oh, gotta jump my car battery. Let me Google that real quick." It's
Yeah.
like,
What are
not
you going to
you
do when
probably just
Google
learn
doesn't
how to do
exist?
that.
How, it's like, what do you are you trained in first aid? Oh, it doesn't matter. You can Google it. Really?
Right.
What happens when your kid falls and breaks his, leg or needs antibiotics and there's the hospitals are overfull? What are you going to do?
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think like people are bereft of practical knowledge, but I think it's a very real danger, because that will get there. And I mean, I don't know. That's why I started collecting books as a
You're the
kid.
same
I, I read
person.
I read Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. A couple of years later, I had it assigned to me in school, I think, but I read it on my own first.
Bernie agrees.
Yeah, Bernie feels the same way. But yeah, the idea that books would be gone forever, that
Yeah,
people just wouldn't even have them anymore, and the state would take them away. I'm like, I gotta hoard them things. I gotta have them for my own. 'Cause I always had this like vision of a future world where everything was digital, and they could just manipulate it and edit it if they wanted to, or just delete it from history and make you believe it never existed.
that's
So
it.
I'm
And
like,
it's
I need
like,
hard copies. Give me
yeah,
the
and it's like people go, "Oh, you're just paranoid." And it's like now you see it actually happening and you're like,
Yeah, it's happening in real time now, so, yeah.
yeah, that is so funny. Like, what doesn't surprise me? We're the same way. Like, I literally have like plant first aid and like I have like a basic car manual. What happens if we are knocked out of satellites for 15 days?
Right.
Can you imagine? Like, well, the first thing that'll happen will be looting because people are garbage. But yet at the same time, it's like, okay, if and we were talking about this, I'm like, if you grew up in poverty and there's suddenly a window, like you're gonna freaking take it. Like, who am I to judge? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like it's just gonna be chaos.
Pandemonium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
But speaking of, uh, all of this, I did wanna bring up a book that I got.
Ooh,
Uh, I don't have
tell
very
us.
much book reporting to do this time, I don't think, but I did find this one, and it
Secret
relates in a
gathering.
lot of weird ways. The Secret Gathering. So, this is a book about the process of writing a book, but this guy, Paul Royka, he had a ton of, synchronicities and, like, kind of a magical journey that led him to writing along the process of writing a children's book. And, it's kinda funny because I was just at a thrift store one day, and I was having a terrible time finding anything worthwhile, and then this one just kind of popped out, like, as I was moving
Mm.
books around, it just kinda fell out a little bit, and I'm like, "Well," I think it's like a dollar, so but as I'm reading it, it's like you're on the hunt for lighthouse stuff. This whole book is centered around an island off of Maine, called Monhegan Island. There's a whole section in the middle where his work was as an antiques appraiser, and he was on, like, Antiques Roadshow and stuff like that, so there was already kinda he's following these synchronicities, and he's basically doing the more upscale version of what you do.
Excellent.
And
Yeah.
the lighthouse ends up playing into it, and somebody brings him like a piece of a lighthouse at one point, which he's not able to appraise because I guess some of those are like illegal to sell because they're technically government property, depending
Oh,
on what it
interesting.
is, because it belongs to the Coast Guard. Then he's at an appraisal event, and people just keep bringing him lighthouse-oriented things, so it's just like this repetition of the lighthouse symbol. Then he ends up incorporating
Mhm.
that into the, children's story that he's writing, which is about these little creatures that are basically made out of sticks. They're called munes, and I'll have to kinda send better pictures later, but that's kind of what they look like,
Okay.
original illustrations of them. They're kinda reminiscent of some of the illustrations from, like, the old Wizard of Oz books and
Yeah.
stuff,
Tin Man vibes.
but they're based on, like, what the trees on that island look like, so it's full of his photography. It gets into a lot of Native American stuff and having to, like, return Native American artifacts to the tribes that they belong to.
So important.
So that's kind of, like, central to the book is he ends up inadvertently, like, taking one off the island without realizing what it was, and that kind of sets everything in motion. So it's a pretty interesting little read.
Lots of
I feel like.
parallels.
It ties to a painting in Kansas. He ends up having to go to Kansas to look at this painting. So
Interesting.
with the Kansas City thing that you
Yeah.
were mentioning, it's kinda also
Well, around and around we go
Yep.
because, well, the first thing that cracks me up is, I'll just give a nod here. I brought this in case you wanted to talk about this. The magazine's garbage, but it
Oh,
had Elvis in here
yeah.
I didn't know what was in here. I just ADHD impulse bought it thinking might be entertaining, and it's not. Beautiful photography, but it does talk about the White House hauntings in here. So, there's that little instant nod from the universe. It's hilarious because I started flipping through it and it's all of these people that we talked about. Lucy's in here. And anyway, it was cracking me up. Back to books, Native Americans. I've been I continue to dig at the Brick Mojo story. It's like every time I think I've got a handle on the events or the like timeline of events, then a new source suddenly pops up out of nowhere and I have to like go back. But that's kind of like that process where it's like I feel like I'm being led. It's insane. But the latest chapter is, I have, most of you know about, I have this, it's literally a giant photo album of postcards, and I've been collecting vintage postcards of buildings that have to do with Mother Joseph, places mentioned, buildings that don't exist anymore. Part of the reason is because it's a good way to see the structures that she built and was involved with. And the main one, honestly, is postcards are all public domain after a certain amount of time, so I can use them in a book as visual aids. So my paying the $3 for it like can pay off later. Anyway, so I have a bunch of eBay alerts set up for different properties. So when new postcards get listed, I see them first, and I've just been compiling them. Well, this isn't a postcard, but it came up on eBay, and it's a commencement ticket for one of the residential schools that she built on the Cowlitz Prairie, Washington. This is for a commencement exercise in 1916. So I was like, okay, I got to start digging more into St. Mary's. So I start digging this is north of where I am, like within an hour north of where I'm. And I keep being pulled away from Vancouver. Like I'm trying to tease out the history of the Academy's secrets, and I keep being directed north and keep being directed east to Montana. And again, now here I'm being directed north. This led me down a rabbit hole of looking into, St. Mary's. I was like, okay, I guess we're looking into this residential school. It wasn't even open that long. And I found an article on OPB about a local Indigenous author who is a professor of archaeology down at Oregon State. And he has just released a new book, Tribal Histories of the Willamette Valley. And this is basically I don't even know if I could call it the companion. It's the clarification of what was actually happening here in the valley to all of the different Indigenous tribes from tribal records. And he actually goes and compares, here's what the government record says, here's what the chief said. So, pairing this together, we can find the actual history of what happened. It's not, I mean, it has narratives in it, but this is more like I would call this more of like a reference guide. It's brutal. It's
Yeah.
illuminating. It just basically fills in a lot of the gaps for this area that I didn't know. So I find out about this book. This is on a Sunday morning, and I'm laying in bed, and I'm like, "Ooh, yeah, that sounds like a book I need to read," because it's an article on OPB, which is Oregon Public Broadcasting. So I get on Amazon, I pre-order the book real quick. I finish the article, and at the bottom of the article, there's a paragraph that says Dr. Lewis is going to be one of the like 30 authors at the Oregon Historical Society's holiday blah 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 book thing. That's on that day. And it starts in like 2 hours. I'm laying in bed. So I'm like, okay, cancel the Amazon pre-order, get in the shower and go downtown. And I purchased a signed copy.
Yeah.
From Dr. Lewis. Now that place was chaos. I really hoped to have a chance to bend his ear a little bit more than I did about the Academy situation. It was nuts. Now, first of all, the first thing that happened is I was like, we got to get there right away. I'm just that way, right? So we get there and we're there within like the first hour. And there were 2 copies of this book left. So I was extremely lucky that I got one. So I was like, okay, if I hadn't got, it went from 10 to 4 and I was there by 11, right before 11, and he only had 2 copies left. Number one, that's great because it means that people around here give a shit and are actually going to read this and pay attention. Anyway, so this is all about the time before and during Mother Joseph's life, and it covers the whole period. So I did get a chance to talk to him briefly, and I had a chance to review his blog and said, hey, I really enjoy your blog. It's filled in some of the gaps in my own research without having read your book. Have you ever done anything across the river on the Washington side, just over in Vancouver? And he's like, no. And I said, well, there's an old Catholic orphanage in school called the Providence Academy, and they don't want to talk about it, but it was a residential school. And he just sort of gave me a sad smile and he says, why doesn't this surprise me? And I was like, yeah, there's a lot of secrets on the other side of the river too.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a chance to like really connect with him, but I at least was able to put the bug in his ear. And he did tell me that he is writing another volume of this. He's planning on doing 2 more. This is one is for the Willamette Valley, which is basically from Salem up to like Portland area. He's going to do one that covers the coastal tribes going down on the Oregon side too. And then he's going to work his way east towards more the Walla Walla and Eastern Oregon things. So I think he's going to be encountering more and more of her builds as he goes. So I'm hoping that I just have a feeling that something about this guy at some point is going to come into play. Because the way that it just happened, like, boom, here's the book, boom, oh, he's in town. It was just kind of one of those things that was odd, the way that it just like popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
How are things going with your Ark of the Covenant?
Oh, pretty great.
That's good.
It's up here on my shelf. So.
I'm glad you're not too overtaxed with it. It's a
Not
big
too.
responsibility.
Yeah, it is. It is. I feel like I probably was remiss in my responsibilities by shouting on the internet that I have the Ark of the Covenant, but so far there's only been a minimal amount of secret society fraternity members trying to break into my house to get it, and
Yeah.
occasional time cop here and there, but that's nothing new for me.
Well, we all are about disclosure, so Ark disclosure
Yep.
counts.
Yep.
So, but you found out something really interesting about the Ark that has to do with our friend Ishtar.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know. But it's you got to kind of take it with esoteric grain of salt here. But after you had sent that to me, hmm, I think it was the day that you got the necklace because it's been, yeah, the pendant of Ishtar. It's been long enough since we recorded that you did. I don't think we've even mentioned that.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Yeah, it was right around that time, and um, I think you told me about. Well, I mean, you can get into that if you want to. I don't know how much you want to share, but it's the actual invocation that you were doing, the meditation with the pendant. And I'm like, well, I'll do my own, I guess, and that's where I got the King of Clubs from. Uh, it's actually a bit more wild than that, but um, uh, these weird magical things sometimes necessitate a little bit of secrecy.
Right. Yeah. We don't want the men in the little white coats to show up.
Right, but yeah, or the men in black coats. Even worse. I did my own little meditation, and ultimately what I came up with was King of Clubs as a symbol at the end of it. And then I took a nap, and then I woke up and I picked up where I left off because I am in the home stretch of reading the entirety of the Secret Doctrine. And I don't think anybody does that. Like I'm pretty sure Theosophists don't even do that. And I googled like, do Theosophists read the whole book? You know, I was finding stuff from like original people that were like contemporary with Blavatsky, and they're like, "Nah, man, don't do that. That's crazy. Just read sections." So, and I feel like it's worth a disclaimer here that I'm reading it as a challenge to myself for that very reason. That's just how dumb and nerdy I am. Is no if I hear that nobody actually reads a book cover to cover, a specific book, I'm gonna
Yeah.
'cause I want to know what's in there. In case it hasn't been clear to people listening, because I feel like Blavatsky's come up every episode. Is like, yeah, I'm not like a devotee of Blavatsky. I just am very interested in her story and
Yeah.
what it was that she actually wrote. Otherwise, people are gonna proselytizing theosophy over here. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily what I'm doing, but I do find it fascinating. And where I picked up where I left off, and it's a whole section about how the Ark of the Covenant is a representation of Venus, Aphrodite, and Astarte, and which is also Ishtar. So the holy of holies there is supposed to. Then she gets into a whole bunch of nonsense about phallicism, which isn't necessarily nonsense, but I don't know. I think that's where things start to get very complicated with her way of looking at things. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny because that's one of those like cue the Corey Feldman gif.
Yeah.
Nothing is real. Uh,
I love to quarry you whenever I necessary now.
yeah, because it's funny to me though, just because some of this stuff is so nutty that like I feel like I just rambled a bunch there, and it's like you just kind of reach out to me about an Ishtar thing, and we're all doing this very lighthearted too. We've been like
Right.
really joking around, like with Ishtar here, our pal Ishtar. The fact that I got to that chapter and stopped recently, and then that was when I happened to pick it up. I'm like, oh, this is all about the Ark of the Covenant representing Ishtar directly.
And I've been wearing this for about a week and a half, and several people have commented on it and been like, "Ooh, that's really cool." They'll be like, "What is it?" Like I won't just like start babble at them, but they'll be like, "Oh, that's the goddess Ishtar," and they'll be like, "Really?" So there's been like 3 occasions in the last week that I have talked about her with random people. I mean, it's like the American Gods thing, right? Like,
Yeah,
"Oh, you're talking about me now.
right.
That's cool." That's cool. So basically what AP was talking about is he found that out about like the arc. And I told, like I said, I bought these from a junk store on a whim. Like I walked in and I was like, oh, that's freaking funny. And there's 2 of them, like it's happening. And of course I put little trolls and donuts inside. You know what I mean? Like, and he's like, I knew there would be a donut inside, of course. So that was just like a fluke. I just like, yeah, it's funny. We have the Ark of the Covenant now. And then he finds out it's related to Ishtar and all this stuff's happening. And I found this amulet. I was just screwing around on eBay looking for Ishtar statues, and I found one of these. And seeing the size and the heft of it now, I kind of understand why it was like $175. And I was like, wow. And I found a used one for way cheaper, and it's like perfect. So I started wearing this and I was like, okay, well, let's like try to kick off some Ishtar stuff for real. So I actually did like a whole thank you ritual and like, hi, I'm here if you want to say hi. Well, it worked. The only god that I've really had that response to directly like that before was Hecate. So I was kind of surprised, and like within 2 days I got an email that my student loans were forgiven. And I was joking. I was like, oh, thanks, Ishtar, for canceling my student loans. And then the other thing that happened is we were able to pay off a big debt that had been hanging over our heads forever, and put new car tires, no more Kojak on the car, because it's just absurd. But basically, within 2 days, I had almost $36,000 of debt that was hanging over my head just vanish, poof, gone.
Yeah, that's pretty
And
great.
it doesn't even seem real. And the other big thing that I did is I was able to purchase um basically all I have to do now for Dave and I to go to Paracon is get plane tickets and spending money.
Awesome. Yeah.
You get your ass there. That's
Yeah.
next.
Well, all of this just makes me feel even worse for making light of Ishtar's ability to fix TVs and help little old ladies with their sore thumb when I first brought up the Ishtar power. Because
I
it's
don't think
like,
it should make you feel worse. I think that this should just be proof of like her awesomeness.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
Like,
after you told me that, I was like, "Ah, I gotta make one of them Ishtar medallions and
right?
put it in my pocket." Like,
Like, you weren't making fun of Ishtar. You were
no,
just like, wow, this is absurd. Why would this happen? But yet,
well, well, to be fair, that book is pretty goofy,
oh yeah,
and
it's
it's
totally
talking
wacky.
about a slightly different Ishtar. So
Yeah. But the star is a legit occult thing. Like you look up the star and it's all over the place. And then
yeah,
they did their own theory about it.
right,
I
yeah,
mean, which is kind of what we're doing. We're just not writing a book about it.
yeah, yeah. Yet,
It's kind of crazy. Now, am
not
I
writing a
saying
book.
Ishtar canceled my student loans? No, not necessarily.
Oh, we could write that book though.
That would be funny.
We
But
should
you
write
know,
just like a tabloid newspaper. It's just a picture of you,
yeah,
like the Weekly World News, and it says Ishtar canceled my student
I
loans.
bought a medallion and I'm 37,000 less in debt. Yeah. But it's because there were all these little bread, it's like this has all been building. And it's like, again, is it Ishtar? I don't know. It's fun to say it's Ishtar.
Yeah, why not?
What's going to
I mean,
happen next?
we have to give
Ishtar,
some
we need an AP in Michigan in August. That's your next miracle. You got to make it
and
happen.
we have to give some credit to Fat Elvis as well.
Yes. May your holy name bless us all. Oh, oh.
Oh,
Do you have any?
all
I don't have any Elvis news. I don't think this week.
anything recent from Elvis?
So,
Well, Elvis is with us in the world, I guess, because and it's a sad story, but have
oh,
you heard about this Love Has Won cult? The
I
the
think
this
I've vaguely heard of it.
there's a documentary out now.
Is
I think
that the
I think
Twin Flame? No, the Twin Flame's a different one, huh?
that's a different one. This is the one where the woman ended up, like, taking colloidal silver so much and drinking so much that she just
Oh,
kinda died and then became mummified, and her cult followers were just keeping her mummified in what passed for their temple or whatever.
look, we
So,
like mummies here, but you don't have to be mummified to be in the Holy Donut cult.
she was a pretty bad mummy, I guess. I
Ugh.
mean, she was awful. I mean, there's a documentary, Jessica was talking about it on What's Up Weirdo, the
Right.
most recent one, and, I don't care to watch the documentary, I just don't wanna.
Yeah.
I ended up listening to the episode that the Quite Unusual pod did about it, instead, just to have an idea of what's going on, but this woman basically, um their cult was very QAnon
Mm.
based, and she claimed to be, like, part of a galactic federation, and she was, like, the godmother on Earth, and she was
Oh.
married to a guy that was the god the father god, she was mother god, and, yeah, so she was basically pretending to be Ishtar in a way,
Oh, hell no.
but she's, like there's a million videos of her up, and she's I guess she was drinking something like a whole handle and then some of vodka a day and stuff like yeah, it's crazy.
Vodka and with
Just
a colloidal silver chaser.
yeah, and the whole all her videos are her just, like, yelling at her cult followers and swearing at them and stuff. It's, like,
Wow.
bizarre. I don't know why anybody was in it. Who am I to judge? But, she was adopting all kinds of celebrities into the cult, and mostly ones that had died. So,
Oh, so
like,
she's doing the Mormon thing.
the one that well, no, because she claimed that she actually had contact with them. In some cases, they were reincarnated versions. Sometimes it was like they were ascended forms of them
Oh,
that she was talking to all the time. So the one that they've been running with is Robin Williams. I guess that was a big one for
that's
her.
right.
She was like, she like hangs out with the ghost of Robin Williams for all intents and purposes. He's like an ascended galactic, cosmic Robin Williams or something. But it's just really
All hail
weird.
Mork. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, Nanu, Nanu. But, yeah, so Michael Jackson does play into it as well,
God.
and apparently the child that she had that she abandoned in order to start the cult was the reincarnation of Elvis. That's why I brought it up. So Elvis has been reincarnated as the, abandoned child of the mummy
So what
the
does
mummy
quote
that
Elvis think about this? Does
I
he
don't know.
believe that he's Elvis?
Well, like I said, I didn't watch the documentary.
I know it. Damn it. Now I'm
Honestly,
interested.
I can't be asked to watch that, Yeah, that's quite unusual pod. It was pretty good. They asked me to let them know what they think, so they have to watch the show to find out. Thumbs up. Honestly, like, that kind of falls into that. I almost feel like it's voyeuristic and kind of the same reason I don't really like true crime stuff because I just feel bad for the people involved, and it creeps me out. I don't really like the actual culty stuff, especially in the modern day because it's so bonkers, and so much of it is documented through video, like in real time. So
Yeah, that's one way we are different. I'm absolutely fascinated. It's like a train wreck. One of the things that I've been talking about, or we've been talking about doing, is trying to figure out like what to do. Is there's still a few of the places around that had to do with the Rajneeshas around here. And I was like, I could go around and visit those and take some video if that was something people were interested in.
well, the documentary about them I thought was really good. I thought that was
Yeah.
really interesting. Osho is like an interesting personality too, because it kind of seemed like he started out more legit and then just kind of,
Yeah. Sheila was crazier than he was, I think.
yeah. By the end, she was kind of calling the shots, I think.
She
So,
was mental. Yeah.
and he was just kind of in the background. But
It's fascinating because Dave talked about when he was a little kid, it was on the news like, every day when they did the salad bar poisonings and everything. He said he and his brothers, when they were kids, were legit terrified of accidentally running into a Rajneesh. They thought they would be murdered just randomly.
yeah, they're like spooky boogeymen that are just kind of.
Yeah. All the kids in elementary school were terrified of Rajneeshs. I was like, that's kind of crazy.
Point is that I think what can be frustrating about it to me too is that a lot of people are like, "What kind of moron signs up for this cult?" And they don't realize that how susceptible people can be to this. Like,
Yeah.
really, it's all people from all walks of life end up in these situations, and it's not because they're dumb. Like intelligence doesn't really enter into it. A lot of very intelligent people end up kind of brainwashed and end up in one of these cults. So, I
Yeah.
guess brainwashing is kind of a troublesome term too. There
Yeah.
are ways to short circuit the you doing what's best for you and ending up in a situation like that you have a hard time getting out of and end up digging yourself deeper. So,
Yeah. That's one of the most terrible things about Jonestown is, and I've researched Jonestown a ton. I've listened to the tapes and the whole bit and bawled my eyes out listening to them because it's like Jim Jones started out truly as a community leader and was helping people of color and doing after school programs and daycares and food pantries and genuinely doing good things in California before he started being an abuser and a drug addict and eventually a mass murderer. And there's so many misconceptions about it, and people literally went there and they're like, "Oh yeah, there's stupid hippie stuff." But like he had the proof, it was in the pudding that he could organize and he could make a difference in communities. Like he had done it
mm,
stateside and he had a multicultural family. He adopted a bunch of kids. On the outside, he seemed like he had everything together and he was, a white dude that was helping people of color and nobody had seen this and it's just sort of crept in. By the time they were all over there in Guyana, it was too late and they were thought they were going to really change the world and grow their own food and everybody was going to be a family, and at first it was great, and then he actually, a lot of people don't know, he had a terminal health diagnosis. He was dying,
mm,
and he also had started sexually abusing men, women, children, everybody in the cult. And so he basically was just out of his mind on drugs. His nurse actually is the one that killed him. He was too cowardly to take his own life. He made her shoot him. He was also too cowardly to take the very painful poison.
right.
They're like, oh, they all suicided. No, it's pretty much, I wouldn't say, I don't know what the actual percentage is, but at least half of them were murdered.
Yeah, right.
They were injected with it. They were forced at gunpoint. Their children were threatened at gunpoint. Most of these people did not willingly lay down their lives there.
Yeah.
And then there was really interesting things if you look at it, because the congressman that was gunned down was actually, there's some very good evidence that sounds like conspiracy BS, but there was some really good evidence to show that all of the things that happened on the tarmac, there's a website. If people are interested, I'll put it in the show notes, for people that have, made it their life's work to study Jonestown. And they believe truly that the congressman was assassinated by the CIA. Those were CIA gunmen and
Yeah,
not,
I mean, I've heard that too. Yeah.
because the type of guns they had, the formation that they did. In a way, it's like Jim Jones, yes, he was a paranoid lunatic, but he saw the writing on the wall that he was going to be framed for something.
Mhm.
And so it's like there's all of these truths, and everybody's just like, oh, it's all the crazy cult people, they all were brainwashed. No, there's a lot more going on there, right? And I just feel
I mean,
so bad that, yeah, for all of those people that, had loved ones that, were taken, and the shame of like, oh, your brother, cousin, sister, daughter, mother, whoever was a crazy cult person. And so many of those people never were able, they were put in a mass grave, don't even have a grave site.
right.
It's terrible. So cults aren't always, it's like these, yeah, I'm with you, where it's like, oh, it's just these crazy people. And it's like, no, these are people that are looking for community, looking for resources. A lot of them have trauma. It usually starts out positive, and then it's like, what do you do when you're in the middle of the jungle? You've given away everything you own, and there's a crazy person at the helm
Right.
that's
Yeah,
dying.
and like you said, sometimes a lot of times they don't start out crazy. There are a lot of complicated intersecting issues that, are covered in just that story. And ultimately, at the end of it, I think what somebody should come away with, having all the facts at their disposal, is that all of these things are just plain complicated. And it doesn't really need to be anything more than that.
Yeah.
Like, it's obviously bad and tragic as a result, but it's complicated. There's a lot of things at play. And that's ultimately what, if anybody asks me any question about anything in the world of weird shit, that's always my response, is like, well, it's complicated. It's not really ever that simple. The sad fact of the matter is that at the end of the day, yeah, the evidence does seem to point to the CIA being involved. Whether to what extent is the question, because then people can go on a whole conspiracy tangent
Right.
where the whole thing was a CIA. I don't know. I guess it's just exercising caution is what I would say. Is still keep the options there on the table and don't lose your mind about it, because you're not in a better place than people that have been indoctrinated into a cult and end up finding themselves unable to leave.
Especially with any like criminal cult things, and you're right, the true crime stuff, like I am into it, and it's such a cesspool sometimes. I get into it and then I take breaks, and it's like there's so much money to be made just on making theory videos and things like that, and you just have to think about, like, what is this doing to the families of the people involved? Is this actually something that I want to participate in?
Right. Is
um
that wild speculation actually helpful to anybody, or is it causing more
right.
problems? Like,
Especially if it's like a live case happening, like the one that I've been following for a long time that just breaks my heart is the Abby and Libby, the two girls that were murdered in Delphi, Indiana. And
mhm,
there's, live court stuff going on right now, and all these leaks, and it just breaks my heart for the families, because it's like they're trying to get this guy, and it's like every time that the true crime bloggers, leak some crap or put out some freaking theory or whatever, it's like that just muddies the waters and pushes the family that much further from a conviction if this guy actually did it.
right.
Like, that's
Yeah.
not helping these two dead girls or their families. And so it's like I just refuse to even engage with any of that anymore, because it's like it's just see the writing on the wall. It's the same part, when there's like people go up and go to John Bonet's grave and do freaking ghost box. Not cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think there can be basic levels of respect employed with a lot of this
Yeah,
stuff, and basic respect and common sense for other human beings. But I think as a species, we can learn to stop killing each other would be wonderful. But
absolutely.
not there yet, and so we're a long way off, it seems. Be nice.
Yeah.
Be nice, people. Just
There's
be nice.
tons of proof that people are garbage, but there's also tons of proof that people are awesome. And that's what we need to keep boosting.
Yep.
Like our buddy Fred Rogers said, look for the helpers.
Saint Rogers. Saint Mr. Rogers.
Love him. I used to cry when I missed a show when I was a little kid. My dad would get so irritated, so I'd
Yeah.
have to rush home and meet Mr. Rogers. But I've talked with friends about this though. Like, my dad was not mean to me ever, but he was not a touchy-feely sort of like guy, and he thought that psychologists were quacks, and he was very old school in that way. And but Fred Rogers was the first dude that sat down with tons of us kids and really, I mean, it was goofy and cheesy, how are you today, my friend? But
Yeah,
he was the first adult where it felt like he really gave a crap and genuinely wanted to talk to you as a kid.
yeah, but
He was
also adults. So I mean, like, did you watch that documentary about him?
I knew I'd just bawl the whole time because I love him so much.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it and I wasn't expecting much because I'm like, yeah, man. I mean, obviously he was good, but I kind of felt like there was this whole wave of nostalgia for 80s and early 90s figures, and I'm like, do I have to buy into this? Am I going to buy into it because everybody else is right now?
Right.
And I watched that and know that, yeah, I mean, I was on the verge of tears. I'm like, what a sweet man. Like, he just seems like he was
Yeah.
really good all the way through it. And there were
Did
a
it
lot
get
of,
into how he would go visit the sick kids and
well, parts of what he was doing were like a very powerful kind of white magic, is really what it
the
is. And I mean, he
pool, the
was,
feet in the pool with the postman and all that. I'm sure they touched on all of that
they
stuff.
did. Yeah, but there was
Yeah.
a lot more personal stuff. Like, he was very sick as a child
Mm.
and bedridden, and he like imagined these worlds, and that's kind of like
Oh,
where the
wow.
make believe came from. Is something that he imagined while laying in bed as a kid. And when he wasn't able to do athletic stuff, he learned how to play piano instead. So all the little musical bits in there were stuff that
Oh,
he
wow.
or played, and but that's like in a lot of cultures that practice some version of shamanism, and that's kind of a loaded term as well. But
Right.
when you're talking about the magical figure in a community, uh, there's a tendency that sickness as a child and like fevers and stuff like that is like an initiatory event for a lot of people that end up becoming powerful magical figures later.
It happens
Um,
in sainthood a lot too.
yeah, exactly. It's a good through line from like healers, saints, shamans, medicine men, up to like more powerful magicians. I think there's a commonality where sickness early in life or that kind of thing seems to have this mystical kind of piercing of the veil that sticks with you for your life.
Mhm.
One thing that struck me during that was the number 143 was really important to him. So that also is like this almost sigil like magical
Is it for the
mantra.
I love you? Is that his
Yeah.
one? Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So I mean, they showed like him pulling out the piece of paper with the 143 and just being like, "I love you," and he made sure that he weighed 143 pounds his entire life. Like he made
Wow.
he used to go to the Y, just like swim every day and make sure like
Fred,
yeah,
you have
yeah,
magician secrets.
yeah. But I
Wow.
mean, he was an ordained minister
I
too.
knew
I mean,
that.
he was actually, I forget what church. I mean, it was the Episcopalian or something like that. I mean, there is an argument to be made that Fred Rogers was like a magical force for our culture that kind of flew
See,
under the radar with that, but
every time I talk to you, I'm like, okay, I got to read this book. I got to see this movie. I just have to like, okay, thanks, personal Tenny.
yeah, that documentary was really good. You will be
Yeah.
crying, but
Yeah. Okay. I'll save it for next time I need a good cry, a good happy cry.
no,
But
I was thinking about that recently though, because I think there are people that are public figures that are almost kind of on the periphery in our importance. Like they're not necessarily they're not a politician. They're not somebody making big decisions and stuff, but there's somebody that's always there.
yeah,
So, and I kind of realized that when like Alex Trebek had cancer and it was obvious he was going to pass away. And
right.
it was kind of like, I never really felt emotionally attached to the man before. I just like watching Jeopardy and feeling smart when I get things right. But yeah, I mean, you realize how powerful a social force somebody like a game show host is, just because you always expect them to still be there.
Matthew Perry, the loss of Matthew Perry really hit a lot of people hard.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't relate because I never
Same.
ever watched Friends or anything, but I understand, I understand how important he was to a lot of people, so,
Mhm. Mhm.
but
And I think that's one of the things too that kind of like hits you with your own mortality for the first time. Maybe a lot of the younger people that are a little bit younger than us are like, "Wow."
no,
Like,
especially because he wasn't that old, like
yeah, no, way too young. Uh,
but, I mean, I don't know, we go off on our little pop culture tirades
every
and
time.
our digressions and, last time we were talking gossip from 80 years ago in Hollywood, so but it's important, I think, because I think it all gets rolled into our perception of reality, which in effect is our reality, like like it might be really silly of us to be talking, invocations to Fat Elvis and all that stuff. But I mean, I think it does serve an actual purpose, and I think the pop culture around things is no less valid from game shows to and I mean, kind of the more cheesy the better, right? Because it does
Yeah.
fly under the radar when you're talking about um, game shows or rock musicians, just silly stuff like that, children's TV. And I've been rolling around ideas to try to write some esoteric Christmas nonsense up on the blog with
Mm.
the hidden secrets of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and and that stuff. But I mean, that's why I've been kind of rolling these ideas around in my head is I think any retelling of a central theme, there are these archetypes, right? And these emanations and a thread that ties everything together. And even a joke that references something is still a retelling of that thing. It's still storytelling.
Yeah.
Even parodies are storytelling of a continuation of that same storytelling. It's still another further emanation of it. So even the cheesiest, most corporate knockoff version of something is still an emanation of that original thing. So in essence, you could probably have a cheesy plastic Ishtar pendant that would work just as well.
I have a pretty
It's
one.
kind of what I'm saying. No, I like it. I like it. I like what you
But you're
uh,
totally right. Like, look at Santa.
yeah,
And the thing you sent me the other day about Santa, Santa was a necromancer.
yeah. And then there's all kinds of theories about Santa too. I mean, like I was reading something this morning that I've heard a million times before, but it's tied to like the Sami people of Finland and like psychedelic mushrooms being a big part of it. Santa's hat was a red hat because it was supposed to be the Amanita muscaria
Okay.
toadstool mushroom cap.
So Santa's maybe a DMT machine elf? Is that
Um,
We're not
yeah,
advocating drug use, that non-legal drug use.
right, right. But
I'm just saying though.
but of course, Santa's also got the very on the nose Catholic saint tradition, or
Yeah.
actually, I guess Orthodox saints, right? Because the actual Saint Nicholas would have been on the Orthodox side of things. He's kind of a mishmash of, especially nowadays, ancient pagan ideas of the shaman of the woods, kind of Northwoods necromancer, Arctic necromancer, raising reindeer and stuff, along with the Sinterklaas idea and the actual Saint Nicholas, and all that rolled over together. And then you throw Coca-Cola in the
Yeah.
mix at the modern corporatized version, and the now Santa Claus himself becomes this conglomerate amalgam of all these different magical threads. And it doesn't make him any less magical. It makes him more. He's a powerful,
Absolutely.
reinforced figure. So I don't know about everybody that listens to this, but I, for one, am going to try to stay on Santa's good side. I don't want any coal in my stocking.
You know, I joke that, I'm naughty and on the naughty list, but like to think I do enough good deeds to balance out my mischievousness.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not mean.
yeah. And I think it counts for something that I'm an unabashed believer in Santa Claus.
I love it.
So
Why wouldn't you be? Yeah.
it's
All hail
like
Santa.
it's a funny thing when you're a parent too, because you have to figure out where that cutoff is. Your kid asks you every year, "Do you think Santa?" Mommy said Santa wasn't real, and I'm like, well, just between you and me.
And then if you have older siblings, they always try to ruin it for you.
Yeah, I had some, like, legit disclosure stuff to talk about, like UAP disclosure stuff, and now it's, like, not even relevant anymore.
I know. It's
'Cause
just
that's the way it works, is
yeah.
the I was gonna make fun of a guy that was on there basically saying, "You know what? Everybody might as well just quit their jobs now and stay online full time and watch because this is about to drop any minute and the whole world's gonna change."
Oh. Well, when the aliens drop money to pay my rent, let me know and I'll stay home.
Who can afford to quit their job
Like, what
and
the
wait for
hell?
UFO exposure? And yeah, and I mean, of course, it didn't happen. He was talking about it happening, like, within days, and, that's
Yeah,
why I like keeping up with this UAP nonsense with Congress and everything. If that's your bag and that's what you wanna do, I'm all for it. If it makes you happy, keeping up with this stuff, but I can't. I can't be bothered because if we miss a couple weeks of recording, it's, like, not even relevant anymore what
totally.
we were gonna talk about 'cause
Yeah.
that ship has sailed, you know?
Yeah.
UFO has flown away. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is everything comes back around. It's all cyclical in UFO world, and we know that. So, there's never ever gonna be anything that's debunked so ridiculously that, it's not gonna come back. Well, we can run down the list of things that have made a return in the past 5 or 6 years that we never thought we'd see again, you know? Alien mummies only just being the more recent one, but, the Roswell slides, the, alien autopsy video, Bob Lazar,
Yep. Yep.
like, every ridiculous thing, Majestic 12, that's coming up a lot now,
Yep. Cattle mutilations, don't forget those are back.
oh, yeah, those have been back, yep. Well,
Um,
there's been actual cases that have been
oh
reported
yeah.
more recently in your neck of the woods, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've never been out there, but
Yeah, and I'm just saying these concepts coming back as though they're brand new, but on the only thing that's new is the audience. The audience is new to
right.
the ideas, right? So,
And they keep upping the ante on the terms they use. Like now there's quote catastrophic disclosure versus
oh,
slow drip disclosure.
right, catastrophic disclosure. Jeez. Oh, and yeah, one of the buzzwords that's getting tossed around a lot, ontological shock.
Oh, God.
Everybody's using the term ontological shock, and they're using it in reference to it's a legit term. It means that you're confronted with something that shakes the foundations of your reality so hard that you like lose grip. You lose your
Right.
grip on reality, basically. But it comes out of Encounters was the documentary, I guess.
Okay. See, you know
But
more than I know.
yeah, but I mean, I also don't care. It,
That's it, baby. That's it.
well, yeah, no, and I've heard it framed this way where I think Red Pill Junkie had said this a while ago on Where Did the Road Go? And I've heard a couple other people say similar things where some of these documentaries are really informative for people that aren't familiar with the subject matter at all. You can watch them through that lens where like, okay, I'm not gonna as somebody that reads all these books and keeps up with this stuff, I'm not gonna learn anything I didn't know. But how accurately do they actually portray the subject matter is the way you're judging it, you know. So I know that a lot of these aren't for me. They're not making these movies a lot of the time or documentary series
To
designed
expose
to
new people to yeah.
yeah, because you can't start with high strangeness for a lot of this stuff, or at
Right.
least they feel that way. They feel like you have to start with something that is a little bit more grounded and well known and investigated. So yeah, these are catered to people that haven't been reading about UFOs for 30 years. So
Yeah.
um, so I don't watch them usually because I mean I don't think I'm going to benefit that much from it, and I don't watch a lot of TV. I have so much things I like to read that I really, if I throw on the TV, it's because I want to shut my brain off and I'm just watching old episodes of The Office or something like
Totally.
that. Okay, so that's got me way off that, but people are just throwing around the term ontological shock and don't seem to have really like, any clue what it means. and they're using it in relation to disclosure. They seem to think like if the government came out and said, yes, aliens are real, we've been back engineering crash flying saucers for the last 70 years, and here's all the data on it. They think that the shock of learning that, the public learning that, is going to like just disintegrate society or something like that. So I think that plays into the catastrophic disclosure.
Right. The other
Where
kind of aspect of that, which of course DeLong is pushing really hard, and Prison Planet people are pushing really hard, is that aliens are gods and everybody's going to freak out when they realize that all religions were made up. Then it's like, well, religions are made up.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people kind of feel that way anyway. Like,
But supposedly that's like, oh my God, when they find out Sky Jesus isn't real, everything's going to go to chaos.
the
Is like the
Sky Jesus
whole,
is real because he's a member of Ashtar Galactic Command
yeah,
and is
it's a tulpa by
flying around.
now, or an egg, or like,
He's
you know,
he's
like,
quite literally on a flying saucer with Ashtar Galactic Command right
so
now.
good.
I have a book where Jesus wrote the foreword to it.
Incredible.
To Ella's book about the Ashtar Command.
Yeah.
Shit, the World Project World Evacuation preface that's written by like actually written by Jesus.
The other piece of this too that I hate that's so dangerous, and it's not just the I mean, it's related to the UFO stuff, but it's out there by itself too. It's like the evangelical aspect of this. They literally see everything falling to shit as the sign that Sky Jesus is coming.
I think people don't adequately fear the evangelical fire and brimstone end of days talk. You have to appreciate that these people think that's a good thing and
Yeah.
they want it to happen. Um, so it ties in with accelerationism. Like you can tell people all you want that they're going to cause the end of the world with end stage capitalism and destroying the planet, and we won't have any resources left. And but they don't care because
No.
a lot of them think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
They think that the world is going to end anyway. It's going to end soon, and they're going to be saved, so they don't care. Anything they can do to contribute to the end of days is actually
Yeah. Because
helpful.
Sky Jesus is coming to rapture us all away.
Right. Yeah.
And like we all like, haha, the true evangelical culture, they truly believe this. People that have never been around it don't understand how deep this goes.
Yeah, they're not casual churchgoers or people that are like just basically Christian but never go to church. These are people that are like deeply believe that they're going to ascend pretty
Yeah.
soon. And so like and none of the material world matters, you know. That what's happening here on earth is like it's not going to matter. Ultimately, they don't need to actually preserve it because it's going to be over. And the sooner it's over, the better. Like
Yeah.
because they already got their ticket.
So toxic.
That's why people should be afraid of that way of thinking, you know. And on the other hand, the if you're gonna take the purely Gnostic tack that none of this is real anyway, and there are a lot of people that prison planet types that think anything material is absolutely evil. And actually, that informs a lot of Blavatsky's ideas. If you start thinking like it's the Matrix and all of this is fake and it doesn't matter, it's like you know what, it actually kind of does though. Like it's all emanations. Even if you want to believe that, it's emanations of the true reality. That doesn't mean it's any less real. It just means that can't cling to it as the only thing. Because when you start falling into these lines of thinking and you don't actually think about it enough, you don't actually have guidance or people that can help you with this stuff, help to contextualize it, or you're following the wrong person, you end up like contributing to the end of the world. And that's not good for anybody. It really isn't. No one's coming to help you out. No one will save you. It's save yourself and save those around you. We just need to be a network of people helping out.
If you are a Christian and you do believe that God is coming back or Jesus is coming back, the next logical step for me would be, if you believe that way, would be like, well, why am I placed here right now? It's got to be something more than just waiting. I mean,
Well,
you know
right.
what I mean? It's like, why would he have you just passively suffer? There's so much suffering, and suffering is so like holy, and especially like the Catholic faith, and it's so kind of warped. They're so into the sorrows and the pain of God, and like, you know, yes, that's part of life, I get it, but it's like there's like an elevation of that almost in some of this too, where it's like suffering gets you somehow closer to God, and I don't understand that.
Redemptive suffering.
Right. If you believe in a God and a loving God, why the hell would he want to torture you?
Well, I think that might be a misapplication where the concept of redemptive suffering is that you start to consider your own suffering or physical pain, a lot of other things, turmoil. If you can think of that as being taking that away from somebody else and taking it on yourself.
Mm,
So like I guess there would be a static amount of pain in the world, right? Your suffering is actually pulling out enough of that that somebody else isn't get later.
that's
And
see, that's too close to the loosh on the prison planet for me.
oh well, that Deluge comes from I think the Monroe Institute. I think that comes from that.
Okay. The gateway tapes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I've
Right.
got those. I listened to like one of them and fell asleep. So I was like, yeah, I guess that's not happening.
I've done a few, but I think the Deluge doesn't appear until you're like at like a
Oh,
certain level
that
or
explains it.
dimension of it. I mention them every episode, but I'm sure nonsense bizarre people would know about it because they've done a lot of that kind of stuff. I know Sequoia has done a lot of the meditation tapes, and I did one. That's where I got the Nons de Pooch, Gnomes of the Beam is what it was.
Yeah. Okay.
That's where that came from, is from one of those guided meditations.
Interesting.
I don't know if I just have an overactive imagination or if it's easier for me to do that though, but I don't find I ever really need the guided stuff. I just do a meditation and then
Yeah. You were able to slip in really quickly.
yeah, I could just be right back and then
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
It's that hypnagogic.
Yeah, it's a form of auto hypnosis. It's
Mhm.
I wouldn't want to do it during an episode, but
Yeah,
I
no.
probably could.
I'd just be, like, whispering things like, "Here come the demons. They're carrying donuts. Don't be afraid."
Well, the meditation I did was where I got the beam dwarves thing was you had to imagine that you were in a place that doesn't exist in reality, but would be like your ideal place. So of course I'm imagining like a giant library. It's like a study with like one of those ladders that has wheels that runs on the shelves that are too high to reach. And yeah, then that's where I found a giant book that looked like it was from the 1800s with the leather bound cover and everything, and it said dwarves of the beams in French on it. I had to look that up after because I didn't know that word. I don't really know how to pronounce it, but the beam dwarves, yeah. That was quite a while ago. I still don't know
Yeah.
what it is. It's just something that's filed away in the back of my head.
Yeah, like, 5 years from now, I'd be like, "Hey, remember those beam dwarfs?"
I took it to mean like literal dwarves or little people that like live in the attic. Like the beams that would be in your rafters and things like that. That's kind of what I was picturing it, like support beams for a house. So, but then I started thinking about like a beam of sunlight, and since then I've just dabbled in it, and it'll be pretty spontaneous. And I'm just thinking like, oh hey, I haven't done like you mentioned doing a meditation, and I was like, oh yeah, I should do that. I haven't done that in a bit. I'll do one right now.
Be right
It
back.
tends to be spontaneous for me. I just need the suggestion in my head, and I'll just do it. So. Um,
That's awesome.
Using it
Liminal
here.
Earth went viral, and the map is currently down.
Yeah, the whole map got borked by
Thanks, Google.
but no, they're actually rolling out the new one. So that's coming very soon. They're converting the
Back up
map
and
over to
running.
a different thing, and it's gonna be up and running soon. So from what
Yes.
I understand, two dudes doing that. So bear with them.
They're great dudes. So it'll happen. Our buddies at Liminal Earth, they always have something fun and exciting going on. AP's always got something fun and exciting going on. Check out his blog. He's cooking up some new stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. We just wanted to talk to y'all. It'd been too long.
yeah. We'll get some legit stuff up with guests and everything. 2024 is going to be the year.
Everybody have a fantastic holiday. If we don't talk to you till then, thanks for believing in the Holy Donut. May Fat Elvis and the Holy Donut bless you and yours this blessed season.
Oh,
Oh, oh, oh. What's your favorite Elvis Christmas song?
I think it's got to be Blue Christmas. That one's just classic.
Mine's
Yeah.
Santa Claus is back in town. So listen to some Elvis. Watch the Graceland Christmas specials. Pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. See, there's some Elvis news we just
Yes.
right past.
And the big disclosure there is Post Malone was there, and I was like, no, Post Malone. And then he came out in this leopard suit that I have to find one for AP because he would look so much better in it than this dork. And I have to admit, Post Malone killed it. I was like, holy crap, this guy can freaking sing. I didn't know.
Well, full of surprises, I guess.
And I know he's Bagans adjacent, so that's very hard for me to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the Graceland Christmas special, it's on YouTube. I'll link it so you guys can watch it if you want to. It's pretty cool.